Live on a sunny and bitterly cold Wednesday afternoon in Northeast Ohio. Welcome on into the bullpen. I am Adam the Bull, of course, and we are brought to you by Bet Rivers. If you haven't checked out the Bet Rivers app, by now you're missing out. So download it today or go to betrivers.com for all your gambling needs. The Browns took a gamble today, and let's face it. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say let's face it, because what I'm about to say is not a fact. It's an opinion. It's a strong opinion, but it may turn out to be untrue. The Browns have fucked up. It's that simple. They have fucked up royally, and I guess at this point I shouldn't be surprised. I've been covering this team for 15 years. Hard to believe saying that sometimes. For 15 years, I've been covering this football team, and unfortunately for the great, great fans of the Cleveland Browns, this team, more often than not, finds a way to F things up, and they've done it again. The day started around 10:30 this morning. We got the breaking news about Todd Monken. I'm sure a lot of you watched me and the other guys on UCSS. But there's so much more to get into. So last week, I had mentioned that Todd Monken was my last choice. Of all the names connected with the Browns, Todd Monken was my last choice of who I wanted to coach the Browns. Because I either wanted a coach that had experience as a head coach or a young guy with reason to have some optimism. And in this coach, you get neither of those things. In fact, he's the only coach that the Browns even talked to that I can think of that didn't fit at least one of these two categories. The only one. And so when it came out, I believe from Adam Schefter first, before the Browns officially announced it, that they had hired Todd Monken, I found that to be a big disappointment. Now, I also said that I will give whoever the Browns hire a chance to have success. And I will. When we get to training camp or OTAs and training camp and preseason and at the start of the season, I'm not going to be unfair to Todd Monken at that point. I will judge him on his merits at that point, especially once the season starts, right? But for today, my reaction and the reaction of many fans is utter disappointment. That was the initial reaction. And when I woke up this morning, if you told me that Todd Monken being hired by the Browns as the head coach would only be the second worst Browns news of the day, I would have said you were crazy. Again, last week I said Todd Monken was my last choice to be the Browns head coach. So how can there be worse Browns news than Todd Monken being hired? Could there have been an injury? No. Could there be a player ripping the team? No. Could, or maybe, but I haven't seen it. Could Myles Garrett have requested a trade yet again? Not yet. But apparently they went through this whole process, leading Jim Schwartz to believe that he was going to be the guy. In fact, I just saw a tweet from Jordan Schultz from the Schultz Report, and he said this: the Jim Schwartz situation with the Browns, per sources. Schwartz expected to get the head coaching job. He expected to get the job, especially after Grant Udinski dropped out. And that was, Sunday? Friday? I can't remember now exactly what day that was, but it's been at least a couple days, at least 3 days. When informed this morning that the job was going to Todd Monken, Schwartz said goodbye to a few people and angrily told others he was, quote, done with the Browns. Now, that's According to sources, he said that. More from Jordan Schultz. Several players, including Myles Garrett, have a strong affinity for Schwartz, as we already knew. It will be worth watching how these players react to all of this. I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm not bouncing around social media. I'm doing a show. We'll look and see if anything pops up here. Finally, Jordan says, Schwartz is under contract with the Browns, so he can't just leave. But as one source put it, if it has to get ugly, this is a quote from a source of his, if it has to get ugly, Schwartz is someone who will be perfectly fine making it ugly. So is there a chance that Jim Schwartz, they'll whatever, the Browns will give him a ton of money or something, and he'll change his mind? Sure. Now, I believe that another team, I heard, I saw something earlier that the Niners are one of the teams that are interested in Jim Schwartz. I believe if the Niners offer him the job as defensive coordinator / assistant head coach, then he would have the right to leave even without Brown's permission. But if he's this pissed, I can't imagine the Browns are going to force him to stay. And if he wants, he could just quit. He wouldn't be able to coach this year because he's got 1 year left on his contract, but he could quit, sit out a year, and there'd be half the league would hire him next year to be the DC. Or maybe he'd be done with it. But he is, and what's so it's not funny, it's sad. When the news broke on Monken, I said earlier in the day on my other show that if I'm Schwartz, I'm pissed. I'm even more pissed. You see, if they hired a young coach, if they hired Grant Udinski, and again, I don't know, maybe Jim Schwartz would have been pissed no matter who it was, because as Jordan Schultz said, and others have reported the same, he thought he was getting the job. So the Browns clearly did not. It's just crazy, because after the season, now I'll get back to the point I was making. After the season, when they fired Kevin Stefanski, Jimmy Haslam was asked, is Jim Schwartz going to be back next year? And he said unequivocally yes, 100%. And during the entire 3+ week process where the Browns have been talking to a number of coaches, have had second interviews with a number of coaches, it has been consistently reported. Now, we don't know this to be 100% true, but if everybody's reporting it, it's likely true, that the Browns, and it's reasonable to believe because of what Jimmy said at the start of this process, the Browns have been pushing that Jim Schwartz has to be the defensive coordinator. And that turned off a lot of the young candidates. Not necessarily that they didn't want Jim Schwartz, just that he was being forced on them. Something I said was ridiculous. And people say, well, Bull, you said that the young guys should be able to pick their staff, so why is it a big deal that Schwartz is gone? Here's why it's a big deal. It's not that I wanted Jim Schwartz gone. Obviously, I wanted Jim Schwartz to be the DC. He's done a great job. In the decade plus that Jimmy Haslam, I need water, sip of water, pause. In the decade plus that Jimmy Haslam has been the owner of the Browns, I think it's very clear that Jim Schwartz is the best. If you look at all the coaches and front office personnel that have been hired, it's pretty much unarguable that Jim Schwartz has been the best hiring in the last decade plus since he took over. And so why would I want him to leave? However, if you hire a head coach, you got to let him pick his guys. But clearly, when they hired Todd Monken, he was perfectly fine with Jim Schwartz being the DC. I'm sure they told him that. He was like, whatever. See, Nate Scheelhaus, Grant Udinski, these other young guys, they don't have to take this job. I know it's one of 32, but they're young up-and-comers. They're going to get other opportunities. Todd Monken is about to turn 60 years old. This is his only shot. This is it. Nobody, not a single other team. Again, there were 10 jobs open this year. 10. 9 other teams had an opening for their position. That's almost a third of the league. And not one of the other 9 teams interviewed Todd Monken for the job. Forget offering him a job. They didn't even interview him. Not a single one of the 9 teams interviewed him for the head coaching job. Not one. And yet, the Browns in the end choose this guy, which is just mind-blowing, pass up. And so, of course, he was going to take Schwartz to DC. He would agree to anything to get his first head coaching opportunity at 60. Most guys don't get it that late. There's not a lot of Blanton Colliers out there. So, of course, he was going to agree to it. Here's the problem. The Browns never talked to Jim Schwartz about staying on as the DC if he didn't get a job, which we found out almost immediately after they hired him. Everybody told me I was being ridiculous, that why would Jeff Schwartz, I was thinking, I said for an hour that Jim Schwartz would be pissed. It was obvious. Wouldn't anybody be pissed in this situation? A lot of people, the Browns apologists, all stacked up against me and said, why would he be pissed? This reason, that reason. Of course he's pissed. And then there's a bunch of idiots saying this is a good job, that anybody would want the Browns DC job. Are you kidding me? You can only go down. If you have success with the Browns defense, you're going to get no credit because it was already good. And if you go down at all, you're going to get the blame. It's a terrible job. Plus, it would be under a head coach that a lot of people think probably doesn't have a long shelf life. I wouldn't be shocked if Monken got fired after 1 year, if it goes really poorly next season. Now, getting back to the original point before I sidebarred off of it, to me, this is the if they had hired Grant Udinski, if they had hired Nate Scheelhaus, again, he might have been pissed anyway. Maybe he would have been more pissed with a young guy. I'll never know. But in my opinion, this is more of a slap in the face to Schwartz, because at least with the young guy, if I were Schwartz, I'd be angry. But with the young guy, maybe he could have been sold on, listen, coach, we want to hire a guy that hopefully can be our coach for the next decade plus. Unfortunately, we need to hire somebody younger. I don't know if you can say that in an interview. Find a nicer way to say it. But that's the reality, if you'd done that, right? But we value you. We need you here. You're going to have total autonomy of the defense. We're going to pay you whatever the hell you want. Jimmy's got endless money to spend. We need you. But when you hire a guy who has same age, no head coaching experience, yes, he was a good coordinator with the Ravens, but Jim Schwartz was a good coordinator on a much challenging team with the Browns. And instead of promoting him or promoting a young person because you need that future, you promoted a guy in his age bracket from another team that was at the same level of him. And you said, what you've done means nothing. We want you to stay in that same role. But this guy's now your boss. And Jim Schwartz said, F you. Now, can they reconcile? Anything's possible. But I think it's highly unlikely. And the fact that the Browns somewhere along the line made him believe, A, that he was going to have, that the job was his, and B, more importantly, that how they didn't talk to him about, hey, coach, listen, if we pick going another direction at head coach, we can't lose you. We have to have you. How you would not talk to him about that before today is just fucking nuts. It is. So now you have the head coach that nobody outside of the Browns front office wanted, although I don't buy he was their first or even second choice. The young guys probably all turned him down. You have a DC that wants out. You got to replace the special teams coach. You got to replace the OC. You're going to have to replace an entire coaching staff. 29 of the other 31 teams have their coaching staffs mostly in place. Listen, again, as I started with 15 minutes ago, it might all work out. Todd Monken might be the right guy. He might hire good assistant coaches. It all may be we got worked up for nothing. But right now, it looks like an absolute fucking disaster. This could not have gone worse. The Schwartz thing just really puts it over the top. All right, let me get some comments from you folks in the chat. And I got a lot of tweets as well. That's another thing we got on the screen there before I get to the comments. He was here as the OC under Freddie Kitchens, that disastrous year in 2019. So he's already you know what? It's just crazy. Sam Holick, we're live with Adam the Bull in the bullpen. Thank you, Sam. Evan 419 says, what a nightmare. Hopefully that's about the Browns and not about me, Evan. I appreciate it. Spencer Grace says, here we go again. Rocco knows we got to give it a chance, even though I don't believe in it at all. I will. I'm going to be angry about this for a little while, but it's, like I said, I will, if not sooner, I will turn the page on my anger about this by OTAs. Maybe sooner. And give it a chance. But how could you feel good about that? Evan 419. Zero chance this was Berry's decision. You gonna stake your biggest decision since Watson on a 60-year-old first-time head coach? Yeah. Exactly. We were told that Andrew Berry was indispensable. We were told that Andrew Berry was going to run this process. And this feels like a Jimmy Haslam hire. 100%. Obviously, I don't know that for sure, but that's what it feels like. Let's see. S.A. Spencer, laughing my ass off. I couldn't miss your unfiltered reaction. Yeah, I like to be able to let the curses out because normal human beings talk with cursing, but we're a little uptight about that on TV, which is insane. Sex, fine. Violence, fine. Cursing, people could be damaged. Z tweet posts, he was the only one that finished his essay. Maybe that was it. Maybe Todd Monken was the only one that could get through the essay. Galen Seeger, kicking the balls to Schwartz. Yes, it is. Orange and Brown City, we have someone that feels good about this. I'm so excited, Adam. I'm looking forward to Todd Monken. I think it will be good for the team, although I'm worried now because Jim Schwartz says he's unhappy and wants to leave. Elephant says, surprised that Sean McDermott is still out there. I've heard he's going to sit out a year. There's reports about that. Yes, he had Josh Allen, but look at his record as coach of the Bills. Joe Brady will be good with Josh, but how good of an overall coach will he be? I don't know. Evan 419, I don't even care about Schwartz leaving. I think he's overrated here. It's just the whole process is a joke. I don't think he's overrated. I was okay if he left because they felt like they had a coach that they had to have, and that guy wanted his guy. I was okay with that, but that's not what happened here. The way this is happening is what makes it so bad. Let's see. The metabolic dietitian. I hope the reports about Schwartz aren't true. I think that's unlikely that that's not true if everybody's reporting it. I mean, anything's possible. What a brutal situation if the Browns were pitching Schwartz as DC, so top head coach candidates drop out because of it, and Schwartz never had any interest anyway. Yes. You made that a huge part of the process, and then you didn't get, probably part of the reason you didn't get your top guy, maybe two, is because of this, and then he's not taking the job. He doesn't want the job anyway. ADAJ, why in the hell would anyone want to come here? Until Haslam is gone, nothing will change. I can't argue with that. Bowl 3 row. Perfect timing for Miles to go back to Media Row and he wants to be traded again. B. Skrills, Berry should have been fired right along with Kevin. That is correct. This is embarrassing. Let's see. George Devaney. So they couldn't get a good coach because they wanted to keep Schwartz, and then they lose Schwartz anyway. It does appear to be the case. They haven't lost him yet. Elephant says, quite sure Schwartz would jump at the Niners job. 100%. That's right. They had a bad year last year. I mean, not a bad year. They made the playoffs, but they weren't very good defensively. Great job. Charles Connor, being a fan of this team hurts my heart. It does. That's sad. Randy Schlupp says we would have better results if crooked Jimmy would have fired Berry. That's fair. Let's see. Roderick Wilson. Bring in Rex Ryan as defensive coordinator. Yeah. That's all we need is another overrated, over-the-hill coach. Joe Slops. Jimmy Haslam deserves all the headache and bad karma he gets. Let's see. Dan Bowers, another 2 to 4 win season in 2026, maybe. The metabolic dietitian again. I'm worried the defense won't give a damn now. They clearly loved Schwartz. I wouldn't blame the top guys for asking for a trade. Morois, the worst thing to ever happen in the history of Cleveland sports was the sale of the team to Haslam. We weren't saying that at the time, but it's been bad. Arcade Fam, how does everyone in the world know they want to keep him as DC, but he is the only person who never caught wind of it? LOL. Primetime says, what if Berry resigns because he didn't get the coach he wants and then goes to Atlanta? That would be hilarious. It would be. Although they haven't hired a GM, I don't think yet. Schultz, Cleveland Circus with the clown. Khalil says Berry didn't hire Monken. What the fuck? Now that's just my opinion. I don't know that for a fact. Schultz says bring in Freddie Kitchens. Well, Todd Monken was ripping Freddie Kitchens when he was here, so I don't think that's going to happen. Chris Kane, I'm done with the Cleveland Browns. Won't root for them no more after today, so thank you for that, Jimmy. Come on, Chris. You'll be back. Rocco knows the gods at least let us keep Jose Ramirez. And Mac Joe says they are who we thought they were. Jacob Boris is Bull and Fox for DC and special teams coordinator. Not bad. All right, let me read some tweets, and we'll give some final thoughts and keep it pushing, as G. Bush would say. Let's see. Okay. I'm trying to find some good ones. Hollywood Meach, Adam the Bull, you're not being consistent. You said you would be open-minded to whoever the Browns hired, and no coach should be forced to keep Jim Schwartz. Now you're just bashing the Browns. I'm not being inconsistent. I am being consistent. I will give him an honest chance. I didn't say I was going to do it the first day they hired him. Number two, I agree. I did say they shouldn't be forced to keep Schwartz. That's not why he's leaving. If they thought they hired the best guy and that guy wanted Schwartz out, I would be fine. I wouldn't have been yelling about Schwartz being gone at all. And you got to spell his name right. Schwartz. Schwartz, Steve Allen. Schwartz being traded to San Francisco for the quarterback, maybe? Yeah, keep dreaming. Let's see. That's about it from Twitter right now. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow. Dustin will be with me, 9 a.m. We'll have Bull and Fox with you. Then I'll be on UCSS tomorrow. I'm going to try to get Zach Jackson on with me Friday, but he's at the Senior Bowl, so I'm going to touch base with him today. So we'll probably have Zach on Friday, if not maybe over the weekend or something, but Zach will be on soon to give more of his thoughts on this. All right. Thanks, everybody, for jumping in with me today. I really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, I'm sure if you're in the chat right now or if you're watching right now, you've probably hit the subscribe button already. But please do so if you haven't done so yet. Thanks to Z and Ernie for producing today, and thanks to all of you for watching and listening. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Where else but right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.